Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Honestly Hannah, a podcast hosted by me, Hannah Coda, where I share all my honest opinions about all things going on in the world. I'm treating this podcast like a diary, and trust me, I have a lot to say. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. If you haven't seen by the title, it is all about serial killers and me really trying to figure out why I am so obsessed with this world, right? Not only serial killers, but like murder mystery, like type media. And when I say media, I mean like anything from like TV shows, movies, podcasts. I guess that's kind of it. But like I am 100% in, and I feel like I've always been really obsessed about all of this stuff. And just to kind of backtrack a little bit, I was going to talk about this on last week's podcast. However, the Oscars happened, and I feel like I had to dedicate a whole episode to that because that was a hot mess. And then the reviews came out a couple like days later, and I found out it was actually the worst Oscars, like I think in history, of like how many people viewed it, how many people liked it, didn't like it, whatever. It was got very bad ratings. So I almost feel validated that I wasn't the only one that was like, what happened? But anyways, in last week's episode, I kind of talked about it a little bit. I'm just going to bring it up right now. I was sitting down watching TV. Again, I don't watch TV that often, so I think it was just there was something on like regular cable TV, and yes, I still have regular cable TV. I have all the streaming stuff too, but I also have cable. And I was sitting there just like flipping through the channels, and then I saw something like of the title of like, I think it was what I looked up. I think it was living with a serial killer, living with a murderer or something. And I was like, ooh, what is this? Because titles like that like automatically catch my attention. And I realized it was Oxygen, which is a network on cable TV. And that's when I realized, like, if you guys have seen cable TV recently or, ever, in like the lower right hand corner, like if there's anything going on like on that network, they kind of promote it there. And I saw it said Serial Killer Week, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. So I was like looking through like what else they had for the week. And then I realized like they really were having a serial killer week. I don't know if they're having another one or whatever, but this is where my like fascination started. So I was watching this documentary, just chilling like on my couch. And then this little like pop-up came up like in like the left-hand corner. Like, those pop-ups where like, I don't know if you guys are of this age or remember or don't remember because you were too old or whatever. But back in Disney Channel days, when they used to want to like, I guess, create more revenue or like create another buzz about it. Like, for instance, like High School Musical. Like, I remember High School Musical came out, and then a couple weeks later, they released, like, High School Musical, the sing-along, where it literally was just the same movie, but, like, the lyrics were at the bottom so you could sing along. And then at one point, they started doing, like, facts about the movie, and it was, like a fact watching, I don't know. But, like, for Disney Channel, they used to pop up facts about, like, oh, behind the scenes, this happened on this day when they were recording this scene. And it felt very much like that. That's what I'm trying to say. So Oxygen was playing this, and this little thing comes up in the left-hand corner. It was like, did you know? And I was like, ooh, what is it about to tell me? And then I looked at it, and like this, what I'm about to say is not to scare any of you all or like to like whatever. I was like, whoa. It put me in like shock mode. It said 76% of all serial killers ever like convicted, prosecuted, basically caught, all of the serial killers ever in our history, in the world's history, I mean, 76% of serial killers are from the United States. Let that kind of just like sink in for a second. 76% of all serial killers are from the United States. And then like the next highest one, I think they said was like the UK, and it's like 8% or something like that. And I was like, oh, so this is like an American thing. So I don't think like this is a phenomenon for Americans. Like this is a thing that we potentially have created. I don't know. I just thought it was a really like weird fact. And then I started digging deeper and deeper because I was like, really? Because I feel like when I watch like some shows, like they always kind of do, like for instance, I was watching that show and they were doing a documentary on a serial killer, a female serial killer, by the way, which is even like, I think it's like less than like 2% of all serial killers are female, which says something to you too. But they were doing a documentary on a female serial killer in the UK who basically like had a psychotic break and like unfortunately like murdered some men. And I was like, whoa, like this explains it. Like I feel like it's embedded within like my culture, I guess, and like that's why we all think it's like a crazy phenomenon. I don't know. And then I realized that I had been kind of obsessed with murder mystery, like crime type shows my entire life. I feel like whenever I came home from school, my grandma and my grandpa were watching stuff. Like my mom, that's what she would watch at night before we went to bed. Like my friends' moms, my friends' like parents, like this is like it was an adult type thing like you would watch. So maybe it was like an element of like you can't watch this and now you're old enough to watch it, so you want to watch it all the time. I don't know. Maybe it was like one of those things. But nonetheless, because of this and because of, my research within the last couple weeks, I realized that yes, like the answer is I am obsessed with like serial killer and like murder mystery type content. And the reason why is just because it holds my attention. Like that's what I have discovered. I realize that like when I'm not feeling well or I want to just relax, and it sounds so crazy when I like say that out loud, like when I want to relax, I turn on Criminal Minds. Like that doesn't make any sense. But in a way, I guess it kind of does because it sounds like it's like a cultural thing. However, I do want to get like that was kind of like the why portion, and maybe we'll get into a little bit more. But now I want to talk about all of the like media and content that I consume of like, again, crime, murder mystery, serial killer, like type stuff. I'll tell you what's good and what is not good, what's going to be a waste of your time, what is a little bit more of like a niche. And yeah, and like what's out there right now and where we can find it. I am going to go over right now the top serial killer shows of all time. I found this particular list, I found on ranker.com. So it is like a fan-based, like type website where like people have voted. Apparently there's been over like, I don't know, more than a couple thousand votes on these. So I'm going to start with like the one that I know and the one that I think is like correct or like should be higher on this list. And mind you, these are like shows that are like happening right now, like early 2000s. I don't think that there are some shows from like the 70s, but they're towards the bottom now. And I'm pretty sure it's because like, like better shows have come out recently. So I'm going to start with number 26. I think this list goes all the way to 100, but that's a lot, and I'm not going to do that. And I've seen pretty much all of the shows upwards of like ranking number 26, but number 26 comes in with Psych. And it says premiered in 2006. I freaking love this show. I was so sad when they decided that they were going to cancel it. It's so freaking good. Apparently it's number 6 of the best drama/comedy series. It's so good. If you guys haven't seen it, it's a very like typical like early 2000s show. The comedy is very early 2000s. Like I guess that's just like the best way I can explain it. The next one is Without a Trace. Great show. 24. I have met people who have obsessed over 24 and were so like sad when it, got canceled. Magnum PI, I don't know. Number 22, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I have not specifically watched this one, but it is very high ranking in pretty much all of the lists that I saw. So this will be on my list to watch like this next week. Hill Street Blues. I think I've seen like 1 or 2 episodes of this, but whatever. Cold Case. See, there was like a switch, I feel like in the culture. There was a switch in like, I feel like in the early 2000s where people wanted, and I guess it changed in like our movies too, where people wanted more of like the story and like the like sitcom like type feel, and then all of a sudden it got to like, no, sorry, it was like sitcom first, and then it was like, oh, okay, now people want more story. Okay, now that we have more story, people want more action. Now that we have more action, we want story, action, and like violence and like craziness. Like, and then people wanted even more story. I don't know. I saw this like switch. So like when Cold Case like came out or like was starting to get really popular, I was like, that's super interesting, because after a while, I feel like it lost its popularity, and I think it's because of the like actual content, like Cold Case. Like people were like, no, we want things that are more current. Like I feel like unfortunately people are more gruesome nowadays. So like that's just like my little observation. Number 19 is Rizzoli and Isles. Oh my goodness, when this show first came out, when did it premiere? Oh, it doesn't say it. But it's on Hulu. Super, super good. When this show first came out, I was like, oh my God, yes! Because the two women in the show, Annie Harmon and Sasha Alexander, they were on previous like crime shows before this, and then they put them together. So one of them was on Law and Order. She was like a lawyer and like a badass lawyer, and was like super, just like she was so good, and she was on like the regular Law and Order for a really long time. And then the other one was on NCIS, and she was killed off of that show. I still have like haven't found the actual reason of why she was killed off the show, but I heard that she was like working on other projects at the time. Wasn't Rizzoli and Isles, but she was killed off NCIS, and she was one of the main like original characters. So when she died, I was like, dang, like I actually really like her. Like I wish she would do something else. And then bam, Rizzoli and Isles came out. It's a detective show, you know. One of them is like the ME, and then the other one is like the detective. I like it. The two female leads, I like the show, but after I think like the third season, it kind of died out for me. But overall, if you want to see the first couple seasons, they were really good. I suggest that you watch that. Person of Interest is number 18. Definitely have seen that. Not one of my favorites, but still pretty good. Law and Order Criminal Intent. I do have to say that the Law and Orders on this list, I think, are placed accurately. So there are 3 Law and Orders from like my knowledge. I think they tried to do a couple more, but like it never just hit off. So there's like regular Law and Order, which is just murders mostly, or like there's a couple like other crimes, because then there were like specific shows for other Law and Orders, but Law and Order is like the original one. And it's, I don't want to say it's PG because they're pretty intense, but like that's like the PG one. And then there's Law and Order SVU, which is for sure PG-13 / like rated R. And then there's Law and Order Criminal Intent. I loved like the main characters in this. However, it is out of the 3 Law and Orders, it's my least favorite. I'll watch it if like there's nothing else on and I want to watch like a Law and Order type show, I'll watch it, but it's not my favorite. My mom, however, oh my gosh, she used to love this show. My grandma too, like it was one of their favorites, and I feel like I just never got into it. Hawaii Five-0, pretty good. I believe it's on CBS / like Paramount or whatever, their streaming service. Breaking Bad, okay, controversial here, guys, controversial. I don't like Breaking Bad. I never really got into it. It wasn't really my show. I tried so many episodes. I think I watched like the whole first season, and nothing kept me coming back. And I don't even know, does this count as like a serial? I guess. I don't know, but I'm not a Breaking Bad fan, and I know that's a controversial like opinion. But if somebody can like maybe tell me the whole plot of the show, and then let's see from there, I guess, if I like it. Murder, She Wrote. Oh my goodness. This was such a classic show. I remember watching this as like a little kid when I was home from school, like because I feel like it was the only interesting thing on like at 11 a.m. on regular like daytime television. it was such a cute, like, little Nancy Drew show, like, type show. Very, like, older, you know. It's the nostalgic for me. Castle is number 13. I've never heard of that one. Obviously Dexter is number 12. Dexter's pretty good. Dexter is actually doing a reboot, if you guys haven't seen it. I believe it comes out, oh gosh, don't quote me, but I think it comes out in September, and it's ranked number 49 of best shows of all time. That's actually pretty high. Dexter is about him himself is a serial killer. um it's a pretty good show, guys. Like, and it's one that has like story behind it too, like with the main character, so it's pretty good. Number 11, CSI, Crime Scene Investigation. Oh, CSI. I think CSI, no, it wasn't the first, but I think CSI was the first one I ever binged watched. Like the theme song, I'm gonna get copyrighted, but like the who are you? Okay, that's all I'm gonna do. But that, like, when I hear it playing, like, and it's on someone's TV, I know exactly like what episode it is. I know exactly like what's gonna happen in there. I was obsessed with CSI, like obsessed, to the point where I thought I was gonna be a pathologist, which is like, I think, don't quote me on this one either, I think as one of the scientists, like in the lab, like I was dead set, like that is my career, that's what I'm gonna do, that's what I'm gonna go to school for. Like I was so serious, like I really thought that I was gonna be like a crime scene like investigator. Like I really did. I think I thought I was going to be in the lab with the lab coats and like having to like tell the detectives like what I found. Like I really thought that that's what I was going to do in my life. Obviously didn't happen. Perry Mason, I do remember watching this as a kid with my dad. Super old school show. Number 9, The Mentalist. I remember hearing about that, but I don't think I ever watched it. I don't think so. Number 8 is Monk. Oh my god. I love Monk. Gosh, I'm blanking on his name too, but the main actor in Monk, it was such a good show. And like thinking back on it, with COVID this past year, we were all like little monks running around. If you've never seen the show Monk, the main like detective guy, he is a germaphobe, like the biggest germaphobe I think I've ever seen, not only on television but like in real life. His assistant, and I believe her name was Natalie, would like carry around like hand sanitizer for him and cleaning wipes, and he would never like touch anyone. And he had like a therapist that was like part of the show. I don't know, it was such a good, like, I feel like that is a classic example of like early 2000s type shows. Bones, yes, Bones with Emily Deschanel. Ooh, I loved the show. I saw both of them together at an event one time, and I was like, oh my god, this is like a dream come true. I was like, I've never thought I would see them like outside of like this TV show. It was really cool. I think I saw them like at an award show or something. And oh no, I think it was just like a game. I'm not sure. But I saw them together and I literally was geeking out, and everyone around me was like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, you guys don't understand how special this is. Like, coworkers that actually hang out outside of work together and that are on a major TV show. Like, I think that's so cool. Number 6, Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Law and Order Special Victims Unit, I think, is number 2 for me for all time, like, favorite type serial killer type shows or like murder shows. Olivia Benson. I've met Mariska Hargitay multiple times. Who, if you don't know who Mariska Hargitay is, she is Olivia Benson in Law and Order Special Victims Unit. She's the main character. She's been on, I think, every episode of every season. If not, she's in every single season. I believe it's the longest running drama show of all time. I think they're in season 22, 23, something like that. But like, this is what Mariska Hargitay is known for. I've met her a couple times. Unfortunately, in real life, she is not like Olivia Benson, and it makes me so sad every time that I see her. It makes me so freaking sad. She is a lot different in person. Not in a bad way. She's just different. She's very like excited and like very like preppy. She's nothing like her character, which I guess is good because I guess that means that she's a great actress. I don't know. But yeah, I just had to mention that little piece that she's nothing like Olivia Benson. But this show right here, I have seen, except for like the newer seasons, like maybe this past season and the season before that, I have seen every single episode of Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Every single one. I've binged it all on Netflix when they had like all the seasons up to date. That's what I mean. I don't think I've seen like all of the episodes of the latest season, but it's just a classic, guys. Like it's just so good. I don't even have a favorite episode either, but NCIS. Okay. NCIS. This was the show that I watched with my grandma. And I don't know why this particular show, but like this is the show that we watched together. NCIS is the Naval Criminal Investigation something. It's with the military. So they investigate any like home-based like murders that happen or deaths with anyone in the military. The main actor, his name is Gibbs, and they and he was like the quarterback for UCLA. Nobody thought he was going to be an actor, and now he's an actor. And this was his show that he had done for, I think, for almost 20 years. This show is like one of the ones that was on for a really, really long time. NCIS was really good, I think, up until like season 10. Again, complete early 2000 show, has very much of that feel. But multiple characters die in the show. So the girl on Rosolian Isles, her name is Kate in NCIS. When Kate dies, I'm like, okay, but that was only the first couple seasons. Then they get a whole new set of like crew, and they were together for a really long time. They get another woman, and they were together for a really long time. Ziva. After Ziva leaves, it's kind of all downhill from there. And I know people are going to have different opinions, but if you've watched NCIS and you know what I'm talking about, I think everybody can kind of agree after Ziva leaves, it's not the greatest show anymore. And that's all what I'll say about that. All right, moving on to the top 4 of all time. Number 4 is Sherlock. I did not expect this to be so high. I didn't even expect this to be on the list. Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman. It is mostly, I think, bigger in the UK and like Europe. But Sherlock is about Sherlock Holmes. It's a modern version of Sherlock Holmes, and they investigate obviously crimes and murders and like all different types of things. But it is so good. This one is like a mind game, like for sure. Like it's a mind game. It can be found on Netflix. I think each episode, you guys, this is why I'm telling you, it's like a UK thing. Each episode is like an hour and a half. And I think there's only like 2 to 3 episodes per season. It's crazy. Like the format is so crazy, but I do agree. Sherlock is so freaking good. I don't know how it never really got bigger in the United States. I think someone had told me to watch it because it was from the creators of Doctor Who, or something about Doctor Who. Like there was some involvement in there, and everybody was super excited when the show came out. Honestly, I think this show has been on since like 2015, 2016. I could be wrong. But let me see. Oh, shoot. It's been on since 2010, or it was on since 2010. And it was like everything, guys. Like and everybody was always waiting for the new season to come out. It would take like 2 years for another season to come out, and only 3 episodes were ever published, like in certain seasons. It was crazy. Like the format of the show was so different, and I think that's what like intrigued people even more. But I believe all the current seasons are on Netflix. Please go watch it. It's so good. Law and Order, the original Law and Order, is at number 3. I feel like the original Law and Order just gives very like nostalgic vibes. It's very 90s, like, I don't know, like the introducing to like crime type shows. So that was okay. Number 2 is Columbo. I hate to say it, I've never heard of the show, but it was because it was in the 90s, or sorry, not the 90s, the 80s. Yeah, I've never seen it, so I'm gonna move past it. And of course, number 1 is Criminal Minds. When I tell you guys, my love for this show is just absolutely infinite. Okay, so when I was a kid and I wanted to watch Criminal Minds, because Criminal Minds, if you guys don't know, it's about a specific unit within the FBI, and this is like a real unit. It's not like in real life. There's a unit called the Behavioral Analysis Unit in the FBI in the United States. However, it's not like Hodge and like Dr. Spencer Reed, and like Rossi and like everyone. It's not like that. And I don't think the team is that big. But this show was based off of a little bit of nonfiction. Like this was in real life. Like there is a team like this that does travel around America. They don't have private jets, but they do investigate serial killers. But when I was younger and I wanted to watch this show, it used to scare the crap out of me. It used to scare me so much because I felt like the stories were so in-depth. This is a show where I feel like evolved with the times. The first couple episodes are very much like Law and Order type feel. I feel like it was very just like, okay, like there's this murder, we're gonna investigate it. Then like as the time went on, so I think the show started, I think I looked it up, I think it started in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. It started in 2005 and ended last year in 2020, guys. There are 15 seasons of it, and when it first started, it started off like every other show, and it kind of evolved to like, okay, people want more story, like I was saying before, and then people want more violence. Now people want violence and story in this like really crazy type narrative where everything is connecting, and like, I don't know. And I think that's why they kept their audience for a really long time, especially me. But I have 100% seen every single episode, almost I think every single interview that this cast has done. I love this show. It is my guilty pleasure, like binge watch. It could be really scary. Some of the episodes are really, really gruesome and like trigger warning and like, you know, whatever, but a lot of it, some of the episodes get into like rape and kidnapping, kids, adults, like there is really no limit. And then they even start getting into like attacking the detectives and like, oh my goodness, I won't give it away if you haven't seen Criminal Minds, but there's an episode around season 5 of Criminal Minds where if I see this episode, I just bawl. I cry and I cry and I cry over a fictional character. And I don't know what it is, but if I watch this episode, I just sit there and cry. And maybe because like in the later episodes, like you get to see like the aftermath of it and they bring it up obviously multiple seasons later. And I don't know, this is how much I'm invested in the show. If you've never seen Criminal Minds, or if you're too scared like me, just start with episode 1, because like I said, I feel like episode 1 and like the first couple seasons are not as bad, and it kind of like grows on you. And I just love the character development in Criminal Minds. I'm actually rewatching it today. The entire day I just sat and watched Criminal Minds. I have to say, so again, spoilers if you've never seen it, but I need to bring up this topic right now. So, season 12, I don't remember what episode, but it's the beginning of season 12. They remove Hotch from the show. Hotch is like the squad leader. He's like the main guy, right? And it was because behind the scenes, unfortunately, he had like a physical fight with one of the writers / producers, and they kicked him off the show after 12 years of being like the main like lead character on the show. And in my personal opinion, the seasons after that, the episodes after that are not as good without him. And does anybody feel that way? If anybody's seen Criminal Minds and watched Criminal Minds like I do, I'm really upset that they kicked Hotch off the show. And I understand like why, because obviously you can't physically fight someone, you can't punch someone and like not get away with it. But like, it makes me so mad. Why? I hate when TV shows do that. Like, I hate when they randomly just like kill off the main character. Like, even if the main character wants it, I'm like, come on, you guys, like, can't you negotiate contracts or something? Like, at one point, they try to kick off JJ, which is like AJ Cook in real life, off of Criminal Minds, which is Jessica Dro in Criminal Minds. They try to kick her off because they couldn't pay her or something. There was like budget cuts, and I'm like, please just get it together. Like, there is like a real fandom behind this show where we want to see all of the main characters come back every season. I just hate when TV shows do that. But yeah, my obsession with Criminal Minds will never leave. My obsession with these killer type shows will never leave. Let me know down in the comments if you guys have a specific episode that you love so we can talk about it. But I definitely think, like, if I'm trying to get emotional, that episode in season 5 is, whew, the waterworks will just start coming. So now that we've talked about some serial killer TV shows and like the top ranked ones of all time, I thought we kind of get into some documentaries, a documentary that you guys wanted me to watch, that I actually enjoyed. Okay, so the documentary that you all wanted me to watch, that I got multiple people recommended this to me, which was Why Did You Kill Me? It is on Netflix and it is a documentary. So it's a true story, and like the full story basically just closed within, I think, like the last year. But it was so good. Thank you to those. There were multiple people who told me to watch it. So thank you to those people who told me to watch it. It was very close to home. The murder takes place in Riverside, California, which is not too far away from me. And it's just so crazy to see something kind of happen in your own backyard and like what happened. It was a story mostly just about, well, I guess you could say it had a lot of themes. But the overall like synopsis, if you don't want to hear this and you want to watch it for yourself, maybe skip over this part. But the overall synopsis was, there was a woman who basically told the entire story. She was a mom, or she is a mom, of 3 boys and a girl. One night, her family was over and they got in 2 separate cars. She was in one car herself, and then her children, 2 boys and a girl, were in the other car, and they were just carpooling together over to, I think, like a 7-Eleven or something. And while they were leaving their street, basically got caught in the middle of something, and there was a shootout, and the daughter that was in the second car was murdered. And basically there were no leads and the police were doing everything that they could. However, it was a very below the poverty line like type area. There was a lot of gang violence going on. So there was a lot of different like people and subjects who it could have been, not to mention the brothers like were in like trouble with the law and stuff. But what ends up happening is the mom and a cousin, a younger cousin, and this happened in the early 2000s, ended up making a MySpace profile and catching a lead, basically, that ended up leading them to the gang that unfortunately got caught and ended up accidentally murdering this person, this woman. And then led to like other arrests with gang affiliated people from other crimes, and everybody ended up getting caught, basically just off of this MySpace page, and like a very determined family and mother. And it was a really interesting documentary because at multiple points of the documentary, they try to like blame it on a couple things like gang affiliation and violence, but then also like the internet. It seemed just like a very modern story of like something that could happen now. And like how the people who weren't convicted but were essentially involved in the crime, that were also involved in gangs, like how they didn't want to be a part of it, and how like poverty can cause a lot of people to make a lot of wrong turns. And just kind of like all sides of the story. I don't know. It was a pretty good documentary. I didn't expect to like get into it that much, but it was a very modern documentary. Like, especially like, I know it's like MySpace, but it could have been like Facebook or like, I don't really go on Facebook, but like Instagram or Twitter, or maybe even TikTok, it was a cool, interesting story, and I like documentaries like that. One that's like very similar to that story that's on Netflix is Don't F with Cats, hunting a internet killer. That one was super good. That was the first time I really had heard of like the internet, like catching a killer and just like the internet and a group of people who like came together and said like this isn't right. Another really good one and another one that kind of hits close to home is The Night Stalker. I watched that whole documentary. I had known about, I'm not going to say his name, but I had known about that and those murders for a really long time, because just like I had people in my family that, obviously were there and living it and remember that summer, in the 80s where like everyone was locking their doors and closing their windows, even though it was so hot that summer. So I had known about that particular serial killer, the Night Stalker, but I did not know that he had killed so close to my childhood home. Like literally, guys, it was like down the street. So that really creeped me out. I was like, whoa, like I had no idea that that had happened. I remember texting like all of my own friends and being like, guys, before you watch this, just so you know, like, you live down the street from like one of the murders, like one of the murders that he committed. Because I don't know, when it hits so close to home like that, I mean, mind you, we weren't alive yet. Like this happened in the 80s and we're 90s babies. So like, I don't know, but still, like, it was just so kind of crazy because I grew up in such a small town where none of that stuff, I guess, really happens. At least that's what I thought. Even though the craziest thing in Criminal Minds, there's an episode about where the city I live, like, or where I grew up too. And it's just so crazy. I'm like, that is the smallest town, but I mean, technically it's still in LA County, so it's like, I don't know, it's crazy. A couple other documentaries that are on Netflix right now, that I think are pretty good to watch in terms of like this subject. I Am Killer, pretty good. Abducted in Plain Sight, came out in 2017. That one is pretty good. Honestly, Killer Inside the Mind of Aaron Hernandez. That one was like kind of sad to me. I know I probably shouldn't feel, I guess, like pity for like serial killers, but like what I have learned also like in my knowledge of watching so many serial killer shows is that, in my personal opinion, mind you, I have never had a family member, anyone close to me, be murdered, so maybe I can't say this or, whatever. But in my personal opinion, I think most, if not all, of murders like ever committed have to do with some type of mental illness or like mental deficiency. And like, for instance, that documentary about Aaron Hernandez, who was an ex like NFL player and apparently had some brain damage from being in the NFL and playing football for so long and getting so many concussions, it messed with his, I think it's his occipital bone or something. I don't know. Something that's in the front. Sorry, guys. I'm not like a huge science person. But like it messed with his brain essentially and his the decision-making part of the brain. And not that it caused him obviously to kill people, but like it definitely influenced it because essentially, that term, like, wasn't in his right mind to like make a sound and proper decision. Like he wasn't, that part of his brain was compromised. So in my personal opinion, a lot of these people, I believe, were either born with some type of deficiency or like, I don't know, like they are, in my book, considered mental illnesses. And it's really sad because most of the time it's because they haven't gotten the help that they got, unless they're like sadists or like rapists, which again, apparently it's a very, very, very low percentage of people who, you know, like do crimes that crimes were put against them. Like, for instance, unfortunately, like in like child like rape cases or anything like that, most people who were abused don't become abusers. However, sometimes they do. It's a very low percentage from what I know. But I still think like a part of it is they don't get the proper help. And it's just really sad. And that's my little portion on that. And like serial killers in real life, I think it's a bigger question and problem, I believe, around mental illness and yeah, and just like providing the support that they can. Don't get me wrong, I know that there are psychopaths and sociopaths in like real life. I know that that is like a real thing. And like it has sometimes no matter the support you give or the amount of help that they get, they're just never going to change because it's a chemical and like physical thing within their brain. And I understand that. But sometimes like if it's not nature and it's nurture, I just think that it can be helped, you know? Now I want to go into something a little bit spooky and creepy, but something that I didn't know that I found out during my research of researching serial killers. And I didn't know, I have watched so many different episodes like based on this guy, as well as like documentaries based on this guy, and he is known as the Golden State Killer. Apparently, he was found, arrested, and prosecuted in 2018 at the age of 72. And they had been trying to find this guy, I believe, since 1976. And they just found him in 2018. He's in prison for life. But if you guys didn't know about him, because his name is not that popular, not like, you know, the Night Stalker or like the Zodiac Killer or any, you know, if you know the names of serial killer or like Charles Manson or, you know, just all of the serial killer names. This one I did not recognize because he just got prosecuted and I don't really remember it in the news. But his name is Joseph James DeAngelo Jr. And he is better known as the Golden State Killer. Most of his crimes happened in the state of California between the 70s and 80s. It was the most dramatic arrest of all time because so many detectives and so many different law enforcement were on this case for so long. But finally, through DNA matching, they were able to catch one of America's most notorious serial killers. Just based on DNA evidence. And I just think that's so crazy. He had committed all different types of crimes, just like the Night Stalker was around during the Night Stalker time, and they had a lot of overlap in terms of their crimes. So yeah, I'm gonna read bits and pieces of this Los Angeles Times article that I found about this man. And yeah, if you guys want to continue listening about a real serial killer and his crimes, keep on listening. Okay, so I am going to try to tell this story as if we're on an episode of Crime Junkie. Crime Junkie is a podcast here, wherever you're listening to your podcast. I listen to them on Apple Podcasts. I also, some other like crime-related podcasts that I listen to are Morbid and My Favorite Murder. Yeah, I mean, those are really the only three that I listen to, but those are like the really three like big ones. And basically on their podcast, they kind of just tell the story of a crime that has happened. Usually it's from beginning to end, like they have, you know, the whole story, who was convicted, what's happening to that person now. So I thought this was a pretty good story to tell. And like I said, I had never heard of this man's name because he was convicted in 2018. He actually just was sentenced in 2020 to life in prison at the age of 75. But he was sweeping the nation of just fear, just absolute fear. So his name is Joseph James DeAngelo Jr., born on November 8th, 1945. He is known as an American serial killer, serial rapist, and burglar. He is a former police officer who committed at least 13 murders, 50 rapes, and 120 burglaries across California between 1973 and 1986. D'Angelo was responsible for at least 3 crime sprees that happened during California. So like how I mentioned before, he was around during the Night Stalker. I believe the Night Stalker happened in 1985. So there was a lot of crossover between them. The first offender, I think the first offense was in the San Joaquin Valley, Sacramento, so up northeast area. He was then named as the East Area Rapist. He had a couple crimes in Stockton, Modesto, and then came down to Southern California in Santa Barbara, Ventura, and Orange counties, where he was then known as the Night Stalker, or the original Night Stalker, which we now know is, again, didn't want to say his name, but Richard Ramirez. So again, their crimes kind of overlapped, but obviously there were some differences between them. He taunted and threatened all of his victims, and police as well, in obscene phone calls and possibly written communication as well, but I don't think any of the police departments have confirmed it. I've watched a couple documentaries on him, but again, I didn't know that they had arrested him because I don't think he was known yet. But there was a book and a movie, not a movie, a TV show on HBO around the Golden State Killer, and specifically this writer who was doing a blog and basically was writing about him every day and like trying to create new evidence. And the HBO show is based on this book. So the book is called I'll Be Gone in the Dark, One Woman's Obsessive Search for the Golden State Killer. It's written by Michelle McNamara, and then the HBO show is called I'll Be Gone in the Dark. It was released in June of 2020. I would recommend watching that little short series as well, so you can know more about this man's crimes, which were truly horrific, because just like the Night Stalker, it wasn't like consistent. Like, I don't know, he would break into like gated neighborhoods, rich neighborhoods, not so rich neighborhoods, like up and down the California coast, and then inwards too. Like I mentioned, like he was like on the Sacramento side of California, then came down to Santa Barbara, and then went down to Orange County, and it was just like very familiar, obviously, with these areas, and there was no like rhyme or reason to his murders, which I think, really scared people in general. Like, yeah, like, like what we've known about serial rapists or serial killers is that they usually have some type of fixation, or they have some type of, like, for lack of better words, a type of crime and a type of person that they murder or do a crime to. And with this person, there just wasn't a rhyme or reason for Joseph James D'Angelo Jr. However, so this case, made national news really because of the DNA evidence that they were able to receive and get to match to this man after over, I think, 30 years at this point of, old crimes. So it says that the FBI and local law enforcement agencies, basically back in 2016, they held a $50,000 reward for his capture because, again, there was unthinkable and nameable crimes. Also, they weren't even sure about the amount of crimes that he had actually committed, that they couldn't just let this case be a cold case, anymore. In 2018, authorities, charged him with first-degree murder on DNA evidence based on family's forensic genetic geology. So it wasn't even his direct DNA, they weren't even really suspecting him, which I guess is what's causing a bunch of controversy. However, on June 29th, 2020, right in the middle of COVID, D'Angelo pleaded pled guilty to multiple counts of murder and kidnapping, and as part of his plea bargain that spared him the death penalty, D'Angelo also admitted to numerous crimes which he had not even been formally charged or linked to, including multiple rapes. On August 21st, 2020, D'Angelo was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. It's just so crazy, especially because it's saying that he couldn't even be charged with some of the rapes and some of the crimes because of the statutes of limitations, which again, I can go on and on and on about. Why do we have a statutes of limitations on any crime? It's a crime. We're recognizing that it's a crime. I just don't understand that. And the terror that he put in these people's lives, like the survivors that he had raped and like left there, like it completely like destroyed their lives. So I just don't think that there's really any type of justice in a statutes of limitations. But anyways, but the craziest part of this article and what they're really talking about is that he was not only found on DNA evidence, but he was found through multiple private companies like 23andMe, or in particular, MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA. He was found through those databases, and they were able to link him through a rape that happened in Orange County, through a rape kit that they had done originally at the scene. They were able to match it through these private companies. These private companies and the person who gave the DNA sample willingly came forward with the DNA and with these results. And so it was kind of a controversial case how he was convicted, but man, like if there wasn't things like MyHeritage or 23andMe and like all of these things, we wouldn't have been able to link him to the basically hundreds of crimes that he has committed, or at least has said that he committed. And that is what the big like thing was about this article. Like, is it ethically sound to use consumer databases to find serial killers? Like, guys, like and he pleaded guilty on 26 life sentences because he was caught. And it was 30 years later, like, and it was him, like, he admitted it. Like, there was no like, yeah, no, that wasn't, whatever. And so what this article is also saying is like places like ancestry.com and other websites have now, successfully been able to link up with the FBI and other law enforcements to obtain court orders to access their databases. So if you are going to do these like, Ancestry, 23andMe, like type of things, just know that, yeah, like your DNA is your DNA, but it can be used in a court case. So hopefully you haven't committed any serious crimes. And if you have, you should probably just turn yourself in now. I really, really recommend watching that documentary on HBO that goes in depth of what he did and what his crimes were. They really lay it out bit by bit and why it caused so much, emotions and so much chaos to happen. He's really a sick man, a sick man, and he will be in jail for the rest of his life, which we don't even really know how much longer it will be. He looks pretty sick already. And yeah, that was my little murder mystery, serial killer moment of like real spookiness that is happening in our lives today in the year not 2020, but within the past year. I hope that you guys like this episode. If you guys wanted me to do maybe like an in-depth type episode on any of these topics or any of these documentaries, please let me know. I would love to do it. I know I've talked about The Night Stalker and like different shows that I've watched just like on this podcast, like in like the news portion, but if you want me to do a deep dive on a specific documentary, let me know. But thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and leave a review. And yeah, let me know what you guys want to hear for next week's episode. This was Honestly Hannah.